like to invite Rick Taylor, the CEO of the Business Tourism Company, and it will be in conversation, not with WoldeMariam, sorry, he's had to be called to an urgent meeting, but with the Group Deputy CEO, Esayas, WoldeMariam, and they're going to be talking about tourism and connectivity in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt, and ladies and gentlemen, a very, very, very good morning. Yes, I think formal apologies from the CEO, but we have a terrific stand-in.
Thank you.
So welcome to the platform.
Well stay. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So I think that is a great, Hannah, a great bit of backstory to what we want to talk about. We want to really talk about Africa, how we can make it fly. And clearly, Ethiopian Airlines has a pivotal position in that strategy. So Africa, tourism, it's everyone's business, job creator, revenue multiplier effect. Ethiopia is the national carrier. Tell us a little bit about Ethiopian Airlines. I mean, you've had a remarkable history. I looked at your results in June, like the best ever. Maybe just to share with the audience the titans of the tourism industry, where we are right now and where we're going. And maybe we can put a 2030 horizon on our conversation.
Thank you, Rick. Well, Africa is one of the biggest continents on the planet, and Ethiopian Airlines has been there on the African skies for the last more than 7 decades. Ethiopian Airlines was established in 1945, and it started launching its flight to Cairo in 1946. You know, Africa's independence out of colonialism was in the 60s. So in that late 1940s, in Africa, let alone a national carrier, there was no nation in Africa because Africa was either Britain or Belgium or France. Right. But since Ethiopia has been Ethiopia for the last 3,000 of years, by the request of His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie, Transworld set up Ethiopian Airlines, so in the late 1940s. And now, when decolonization started, Ethiopian Airlines started connecting everywhere the African countries. At that time, to move from western part of Africa to the east, one has to go to London or Paris. Yeah. So now Ethiopian Airlines succeeded in building the largest African network in the entire history of aviation by any airline standard, from the sub-Saharan Africa, I mean. So we are here for the last 70 years, connecting Africa and linking Africa to the rest of the world. When we started, our commercial tagline was bringing Africa together. Yes. So that was our civic duty to our home continent. Once we have concluded that, now we are linking Africa to the rest of the world. Our current commercial tagline is the new spirit of. This is because Africa was thought as a place of famine, war, unrest, and all the old narratives. But Africa is now emerging out of all of that. And Africa has a lot to be explored. It has nature, culture, history, wildlife, and now people are perceiving Africa as an investment and tourism destination to see all these things. And Ethiopian Airlines is serving like Africa's tourism board, making paid advertisements, not necessarily only to Ethiopia, but to the rest of Africa, with our Asian, European, American, Canadian origins. We make paid advertisements to various destinations of Africa, and we are bringing tourists. So right now we are serving that.
Thank you. I think your business model I find curious because you now recently started to explore the hotel terrain. And we had a terrific cocktail party there last night. I think everyone had a ball. What is the way forward? Are you seeing skylight hotels opening in other hubs in, I don't know, Nigeria, around the continent?
You know, Africa being big, having more hotels can never be enough because now Africa is well situated to invite a lot of investors and tourism and everything. And Ethiopia also is the second largest black humanity on the planet. This we have to know. So even local consumers are there, plus investors and tourists are coming. So many branded hotels are coming in, but that has never been enough. So our first plan is, number one, this Skylight five-star hotel has 370 rooms. Now we wanted to upscale it to 1,000 rooms, and that's going to be the largest in Africa to accommodate mice and everything. So the second thing is, within Ethiopia, the different touristic sites like Bale Mountains or Aksum, Lalibela, Gondar, and the rest of them, Skylight hotel chain, lodges and hotels and everything will expand. After that, we'll go out to explore the same expansion within the continental framework.
Okay. So you will expand within the borders of Ethiopia
Yes.
as phase one,
Yes.
if you will, and then look at the rest of the continent?
Exactly.
So again, your insights on, is that not competing with the private sector, or what's your view on that?
It is not, as I have been saying, guaranteed supply of hotel rooms has never been enough, even in the past. Not even now when people are coming more and more, so it has never been enough. Whenever there is an African Union summit or any other thing, the entire city of Addis is closed.
100%
So it's never enough.
Yes.
Plus, as we are speaking, Ethiopian Airlines itself has been blocking 400 room nights every day of the year from different hotels for our scheduled and unscheduled passenger layover. So number one, to have a quality and guaranteed, well-controlled customer service end-to-end is very important for our customers. So that's number one. Number two, when Ethiopian Airlines itself is now opening a new department called Ethiopian Holidays,
Yes.
so we are promoting the Destination Ethiopia and Destination Africa through that program. So many people are coming, so the room occupancy will be spilling over even from our own establishment to the rest of the hotels, because Ethiopia is now exploding to invite more MICEs and more conventions and more bona fide tourists destined to Ethiopia. Plus, Ethiopian Airlines is also launching a stopover program. Whoever is traveling from the world through Addis to the rest of Africa, right now we have more than 12 million passengers per annum. From that, almost 70% is passing through Addis to the rest of Africa, be it for tourism or investment. So that means we are planning a stopover program here in Addis. So that also necessitates a lot of tourists coming. So even filling Ethiopian Airlines Skylight Hotel, the business is going to be enough, more than enough for the rest of the establishment. So we cannot regard it as a competition, but we regard it as a guaranteed supply of quality service and regulated one. Plus price regulation, because hotel price in Addis, as you can see it from the public domain information, is very high. So our coming in would calibrate it so that we can have a lot of inflow of tourism and net inflow per annum of tourism to Ethiopia.
Excellent. So at the moment, you'll appreciate we live, I think, very much in a VUCA world where there's vulnerability, there's uncertainty, there's chaos, there's all things are happening out there in the world. And obviously, Thomas Cook is part and parcel of that circuit. So to come back to your stopover strategy, I flew in from Jakarta. I was there on business on Sunday. And the 12 million people going through Bole at this point in time. What is the thinking around plastics as part of the VUCA world, recycling, looking after? Because if you look at 12 million passengers on having 2 meals a day with knives and forks, I noticed there's still a lot of plastic on board. So if you've got 12 million visitors coming through the airport, 2 meals a day, that's 24. It adds up to millions, like 72 million pieces of plastic. What is your role, the airline's role, to help save the planet?
Well, sustainability is fundamental for any business. Ethiopia as a nation and Ethiopian Airlines as a company, we have got this the recycling economy and sustainability and other things. For example, Ethiopian Airlines has got the aerospace manufacturing, wire harness and other things. Boeing, Airbus, and others, Bombardier, we are customers buying aircraft from them. And they are also customers because we supply them parts. We are having this kind of thing growing. So for that, a lot of plastic is needed. Plus, within Ethiopia, recycling economy has started. All the plastic bottles and everything, people are grinding plastics and exporting them to some major economies. So recycling is very much on the way. Even in the city of Addis, you see youths collecting plastics and everything and supplying to processing plants at fee. So that's also creating employment as well as, sustaining the environment. So we are all part of that big picture.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I was just thinking, obviously injera, we could get rid of the knives and forks and replace those with something more cultural and appropriate to brand. Yeah. Are there any other challenges that, from an airline, Africa's #1 airline, that you and your team may be wrestling with? I'm just thinking of brand Africa, visas perhaps. I know that's got a lot better in recent months and recent years. Yeah. Are there any other challenges that you, as I said, you're wrestling with?
Obviously. First of all, people, the entire world need to disabuse their thoughts about Africa. Africa is now emerging. As it goes, more than 90% of the diamond is on the continent of Africa.
Yeah.
And Africa has more than 1 billion young population, which is employable and trainable. And Africa has a lot to offer. As I said, nature, culture, history, wildlife. So Africa is now rebranding itself. And, many people have been, especially, this non-governmental donor organizations and others, they have always been projecting a miserable state of affairs on the continent, that people only need to help Africa. But the most sustainable way is for Africa to help itself. When it comes to aviation, only 3% of Africa's the total aviation traffic is being contributed to the world. So we want to grow that. Taking that 3% as 100%, 80% of Africa's air traffic is being uplifted by non-African airlines. So now we are bringing Africa's brands for people to perceive Africa. But this starts from Africa itself. A European coming to most of Africa does not need a visa, but an African traveling to a fellow African country needs a visa. That's why Ethiopia has made, visa on arrival and visa online and everything for Africans to converge here. So more and more African countries need to do that. And hospitality and travel needs to start within Africa. The middle class consumer, which is growing, need to fuel, the velocity of money and economy needs to circulate within the continent. Then it gives a vote of confidence for others to perceive Africa in a better brand when we try to project ourselves in a better way. Yeah. So that's what we are doing. Plus, we are also incubating regional African airlines within Africa, like Chadia, Askai in Lome, Togo, Malawian, Ethiopian Airlines, Mozambique, now Tanzania, and many others. This will give Africa its own better share of the aviation and the hospitality economy, be it within the continent or cross-continent. So we need to work on our brand. Instead of thinking about our own past, we need to rebrand Africa in our own hands.
Absolutely. And I think Ethiopian Airlines is helping fly the flag as far as that is concerned. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got about 4 minutes left, and not to exclude you at all, if you'd like to make a contribution to the conversation, please feel free absolutely to do that. I do believe there are 2 roaming microphones if there is a call to make a contribution. I think when it comes back to Africa, certainly we do a lot of work around the world, specifically in the MICE strategic arena, the meetings, incentives, conventions, events, and exhibitions space. As an airline, do you have a specific strategy that talks to that marketplace? So it's not the business traveler, it's the MICE sector. They're looking for upgrades, they're looking for, on the incentive side most certainly, branding the aircraft. Do you have a ring-fence strategy for that sector?
we have been looking the MICE schedule from the world to Africa, and we have been contacting so many of them so that it can happen here in Ethiopia and also for them to take Ethiopian Airlines. We have been giving group discounts, and we have been giving them, some other incentives as well. And even our hotel, having the largest ballroom on the city of Addis, is able to accommodate, the whole MICE. Plus, now we are upgrading the rooms to 1,000. All of that is, having the MICE at the back of our mind.
Brilliant.
Whatever we are doing, we need to attract more MICE into Ethiopia and into Africa.
Brilliant. So we're having a validation on Thursday, so I
Yes.
extend you a warm welcome to come and join us at that particular
Thank
platform.
You. Thank you.
I think the other thing from a brand Africa point of view and the politics side of it, and we did some work in Rwanda, and I'm going to sort of close off here with and I leave the floor for your closing comments. But Paul Kagame in Rwanda was often attacked by the world at large. And I quote, he said, "Those who worry about our well-being should rest easy. We are the best students of our own shortcomings." So I think at long last, politicians are starting to appreciate the brand, looking at brand Africa, looking at tourism as that economic piston. And I really do believe that Africa is a bright economic spot. Any closing comments?
Yeah, politicians are invoking such kinds of slogans, which is very good, and it gives a political will, and the entire government functionaries need to be designed in such a way. And most of Africa's hospitality should be driven by, the private sector. Once, the hurdles from the governments are removed, the private sector can freely thrive. And this kind of, positive comment is a step forward in the right direction, and I think the future is very bright for Africa.
Absolutely. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time and your attention, and thank you very much indeed for your sharing your
You're
insights.
welcome.
Much appreciated.